Hi, and welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show we're talking about bullying and jealousy, both amongst children and amongst adults in the workplace. Bullying is a theme and a topic that continues to remain relevant no matter how old you are or what situation that you're in. If you're a victim of bullying and you don't know how to deal with it and you have questions for our guest tonight, please call the phone number on your screen. They're excited to hear from you and to answer any questions that you might have or direct you to any resources. So Kathy, before we went to break, we talked a little bit about workplace bullying, and you provided us with a graphic actually on some sort of key points on how to define workplace bullying, and maybe we can pull that up right now so we can have a look. So you've defined workplace bullying as the attempt to intimidate and exert control over another individual, and it often involves belittlement and degradation. So, for example, the show Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, is that workplace bullying, or is that just part of the job? Is that something that you just gotta suck it up and deal with it? Because there are some jobs and some industries that are quite abusive, and there's this sort of feeling that, you know, you just gotta take one for the team.
Yeah, so does that make it okay?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a great example of a workplace bully. Absolutely. I couldn't imagine us going into our workplace today and being screamed at the way that he screamed. Mean Girls is another example, right? The show that was there. So there's lots of examples that are out there, which is sad. And it's, you know, it's something that unfortunately is making the reality TV rounds right now as well.
And you provided us with a stat that 1 in 6 Canadian adults are bullied on the job.
Yeah, so those are the recent stats. We're looking at 1 in 6, and of that 1 in 6, 40% of them are saying it's happening on a weekly basis for a period of at least 6 months. So that's where you start to see that psychological impact, right? And that's what I'm saying. If it's one hit or it's one threat, that's dealt with, it's addressed, and usually through the courts. But if it's this continual niggling things that are happening, we're seeing some tremendous cases that are happening in this country. There's a very sad one that happened with Walmart in Windsor, Ontario.
What happened there?
We had a woman who was a manager there. She was an assistant manager. She'd been there for 10 years. She'd won great employee awards, fabulous employee. New manager comes in, takes over the department, and for some reason selects her. She's the target. And he begins very subtle and then very not so subtle abuse that goes on for a period of time.
What kind of abuse are we talking?
He would walk up and yell in her face. He would make her look and feel as though she was completely incompetent. She got to a point where she wasn't sleeping, she wasn't eating, she had rapid weight loss, she couldn't get up in the morning to come to work. She began to do what the process is. There's laws about this, right? And so the process is you begin to document what's happening. She gathered witness statements. She presented that to her employer. And in Ontario, under Bill 168, the employer has an obligation to create a harassment-free workforce. So she proceeds through that. The employer then conducts a 2-week internal investigation, decides that she's wrong. And not only did they decide that she was wrong, they decided that in fact she was the harasser.
What?
And that by filing what they deemed a false complaint, she now becomes the harasser. So this, of course, would be something that would send me over the edge. I can't imagine someone who's gone through this.
Of course.
So before long, she resigns. She quits her job. She gets a private lawyer. She takes them to court. And the long and the short of it is she wins the largest settlement in Canadian history.
How much?
$1.4 million.
And how long ago was this?
This happened about 7 years ago.
Okay.
So unfortunately, they appealed. The finding was upheld. Walmart was deemed to be, and I'll put this in my own words, they're not the judge's words, but essentially a nasty employer. Then her settlement came down to $400,000.
Oh my
Okay,
goodness.
she's now without a job. 5 years later, she's still without a job. Sadly, Walmart continued to keep that manager. They issued a public statement saying that the courts were essentially wrong. They disagreed with that statement, and this manager continues to manage a store today. So I don't tell you that as a happy ending story.
No.
Sadly, it's more common than we'd like to see.
It's a David and Goliath story
It is.
gone wrong.
It is.
So what's the lesson to be learned from something like this?
Well, I think at the end of the day, Ontario's legislation is good, but it doesn't have enough teeth. So we've just recently seen in October a brand new piece of legislation come into the House. It'll be in effect as of July 1st of 2016, Bill 132, and it puts more teeth in the requirements for the employer, but at the end of the day, proving harassment is one of the most difficult things that we have to do. It's extremely hard, and we encourage employees that are facing these situations to, if they're unionized, use your union reps. Unions are phenomenally strong and extremely well educated in the harassment field. Use them. Go to your HR departments, but know that at the end of the day, you may actually be the one who has to leave your job. And I know that's unfair, and I know that's not right, but it may be the only solution that you have.
Well, you can also flip it as a tremendous advantage of being an adult, because when you're a child and you're being followed around the playground like you or Phil, or followed on your way home from school, you can't get away from that kind of situation. But when you're an adult, you have the freedom to just say, you know what, I've had enough, goodbye, I'm taking myself out of the situation, I'm not allowing this to happen. But are there things, Kathy, that we can do to kind of nip that behavior in the bud?
Yeah, most of this comes, if you can get it early enough, and you've talked about this, Phil, it's that preventive piece, right? And a lot of it starts with miscommunications. So when we look at understanding human behavior, there's basically 4 core human behavior styles. And my own observations of looking at harassment complaints, most of my harassers tend to be in the dominant style, and most of my victims or targets of harassment tend to be in the supportive style. So the supportive individual tends to be about harmony and peace and keeping everyone content and together. The direct person tends to be, I need to get from A to B, get out of my way, I've got an agenda and I'm going to get there, right? And that's the work. So right away, that D style is more harsh than an S style is used to hearing. So sometimes we don't truly have harassment. What we have is communication difference in the styles. So if we can communicate and educate people on understanding their style and the style of others, and we do this a lot in terms of harassment training, you can stop a lot of these issues before they even get out of control.
We actually have a caller tonight from Teresa. Teresa, thanks for watching us. What was your question for this evening? Are you still there?
Yes, sorry, I wasn't sure if you were speaking to me, sorry. It was concerning one of my children. I was really surprised when she was mentioning that she was being bullied at university. And, we always think of high school, elementary school, and I was in complete shock yesterday when she admitted this to me, and I had no clue what to answer to her. I thought that, those days were over for now, that, she can enjoy just being a university student, enjoying what she's studying. And she just stopped me right track on my feet when she said that this is going on at university, and it's happening to her as well. And of course, now that they're done for the school year, I was wondering, what kind of advice or can I tell her or give her for her to say, to look forward for her second year university coming this September.
There really is no age limit for bad behavior. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm just curious to know a little bit more about the situation. What kind of bullying? What's the context?
I think from what I understood is, I guess friends from high school, now that they're in university, were talking about her because I guess, they don't get along. And so this went out to other people that she has no clue who they are, but, because they're supporting their new friend, they decided to come on board. And when they see my daughter walk around, well, they'll make sure to eye her or make her feel really uncomfortable, especially if she's studying at the library where she said that they often cross each other. Then she'll just pick up her books and leave.
It's what we were discussing earlier about a kind of bullying called frenemies, where bullying doesn't always happen between people who don't like each other. It can happen between people who know personal details about your life and can use them to leverage that against you to inflict pain and suffering on you. What do you think, Kathy? What would your advice be?
Well, the first thing is always, is she feeling threatened about violence? And if she is, you need to get her safe. That's always the first thing. It doesn't sound like that's happening here. But certainly there's harassment that's going on. There will be university policies, but I would certainly take the time over the summer, and please do comment so that we can put you in the draw for this coaching session, to really do one-on-one coaching with her and teach her some techniques. At the end of the day, confronting the individual in this case is probably the best way to go about it. Your daughter's probably extremely hesitant to do that. I have a young daughter as well. She's 22, and facing conflict is never her favorite thing. But often if you can coach a person in terms of what needs to be said and how to say it in a very confident manner, you can solve a lot of these problems right off the bat.
Using your martial arts expertise, Phil, how would you suggest that she should take on such a confrontation?
Remember I was talking about the mindset, predator spray. It's also a question of who's going to support you versus who's not going to support you. And for me, when people are making you feel in such a certain way, because remember you had your definition of bullying, the way I teach grade school kids is bullying. A bully is anyone who hurts you, either with words or actions or inactions, on purpose or not on purpose. And so what I teach them is, as uncomfortable as they may be, is to have the courage to find a new circle of friends and not care so much about what that person says. I don't know the whole history, but it sounds like there's a history there that's been carried in over at a higher level. But maybe consider having a new circle of friends that will empower you and support you.
And I think one thing that empowers a lot of people is finding an activity that they can be good at, whether it's martial arts or something else that you can hang your hat on, gives you confidence, gives you a sense of purpose. Certainly that's what you teach, Phil, right?
That's treasure number 2. That's an excellent point. Treasure number 2 is, I talk about, number 1 was respectfulness in yourself, because I believe that when you respect yourself, then that leads to respect for others, which leads to a reverence for humanity. So this is good information for people not to become bullies. But number 2 is I talk about fitness in your body. And you'd be amazed at how many people I speak with who share their own story of bullying. But when I started martial arts, or when I started playing football, or when I started playing soccer, or when I started dancing or doing gymnastics, because I believe that, ironically, when you lose yourself into a craft, an activity, an art, then you start to find your own identity. When you lose yourself into something, you can find yourself. And then you also find the people that you're more attracted to. And I know in university there's multiple clubs that you can join, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, there's loads. And I think as well for the caller, as a mother, really it's about reminding your daughter how much she's worth. You know, you need to believe that you deserve a great education. You deserve a great university experience. And if this pack of mean girls is impacting that, you need to remove that from your world and move forward in exploring all the things you're doing. And university is not high school. There's a tremendous number of people to meet, tremendous number of clubs to join, and don't let this pull down your self-worth, because it doesn't take long for that to happen.
Some great advice for our caller tonight. Teresa, did you have any more questions for our guests?
No, thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
I want to go into some of the different types of bullying and how bullying may differ depending on gender, age, demographics. So in your experience, is bullying different amongst women, amongst men, men on women, women on men? What are some of the big differences you've noticed lately, and also compared to perhaps a generation ago?
Sure. One of the biggest things we're seeing is cyberbullying, right? Suddenly,
that's just a whole new level.
It is, and suddenly everyone is incredibly courageous at 2 in the morning in their pajamas in front of a screen,
Keyboard
right?
warriors.
Yes, and so keyboard warriors, exactly, Phil. So now I can tell you what I really think, and I can do it anonymously, because I can create any profile that I want. And you know, and we've seen the stories, we've seen the Amanda Todds and things that have happened, or you know, people have ended up committing suicide over this sort of stuff. It's huge, and it's wrong. So there's that piece. There's also the generational differences. So you will have, I see this a lot, and I see it maybe more in the males than I see it in women, but males that will refer to a person on their team as the kid or sweetie, things like that. And it's not meant as a negative thing, but that doesn't matter. Again, come back to, is it respectful in a workplace to refer to each other as sweetie? It's not, so don't do it, right? And yet for an individual who might be young, who might be going with a senior person to go and visit a client or to do a project, and that senior person turns to this one and says, hey sweetie, can you take care of this for us? Or something like that, it's just demoralized them in the eyes of the client. So we try to educate people on terms of using those kinds of words and things, but cyberbullying is the biggest shift that we're seeing.
What about you, Phil? What are you seeing amongst children?
I asked the children themselves. I said, "Hey guys, you know, do you know a bully? How does that make you feel? And hey, have you noticed, why do you think bullies do what they do? And then I ask them, do you see any differences between the way boys bully and girls bully? And all their hands shoot up. And the boys say, it's like more punching and kicking and physical. And, you know, the girls, it's more about like gossip and rumors and exclusion. That whole, shunning, I did not know that still went on in the workplace, but it happens in the school. And that's actually one of the most insidious form of bullying. Absolutely. Because the physical, you know, then you walk away. Yeah. But it's very insidious. I've had families come to me, oh, my teenage daughter, and they're best friends, and for whatever reason, you know, she liked the same guy, who knows what, then all of a sudden they're shunned, excluded. So this is what the kids themselves answer. For the boys, it seems to be more physical, and for the girls, it seems to be a little bit more social. But I don't want to stereotype. There's a bit of from each gender.
There's crossover and all of it, but that's a pretty good
That's
way
what kids tell me.
to summarize it up. Yeah.
A lot of immigrant parents tell me that the bullying that they see with their kids today is different than the bullying that they experienced back home. There seems to be some sort of cultural difference. I hear the comment made frequently among immigrant parents that bullying takes on a different level of nastiness here in North America. And certainly in the Canadian stats that I've seen, Canada ranks 9th among 35 countries for bullying among adolescents. So the problem is certainly pervasive in Canadian society. What are your thoughts about some of the cultural differences when it comes to bullying?
Would you like me to take that one? Or
Sure.
Okay. So I have to admit that in the workplace, I don't meet a lot of the employees' moms and dads. So I can't really go to them and say, what are you hearing for your kids? Yeah. There's some of it for sure. There's no doubt about it, and it's racism, and it's been there, and it happens. But there's been so much done in the world of employment equity that we're seeing less and less along those lines.
Less and less sort of racial.
Yeah, it's there for sure, but it's not as predominant as it used to be. So I would say in terms of areas and the complaints that I work with, that would be a lower end of it. What I typically get is somebody in authority abusing their authority over somebody who really has nowhere else to go.
And that individual might tend to be someone with limited means, limited
Absolutely.
options.
A single mom who's got no choice. You know, it's all good and well when you said earlier in the show to, I'm not going to take this, I deserve better, I'm going to get up and go. But by the time 3, 4, 5, 6 months of bullying has happened, you've lost that strength.
Yeah.
You've lost it, right? And you begin to doubt yourself. You're not sleeping, you're losing weight. You know, your family can't help. They're at a loss as to what to do. So really you do need to put into account kind of the mindset. And the other big shift we're seeing is there's so much more in terms of mental illness in the workplace, right? And people are suffering with tremendous stress and pressures that are on them. And things that they normally would not respond to, they're reacting. You know, it's an ignition switch that something happens. And it's because we've got some mental health issues that are out there that we need to work with as well. And there's a great resource for anyone that's working within the bullying field is the Canadian Mental Health Association. They've got some great materials.
And another great resource, Phil, is the program that you run. So how can schools book you, or how can parents contact you to consult you for your expertise on this issue?
Sure, thank you. My website is blackbeltexcellence.com. On the homepage, you click on Bully Busters, and you'll see there's a video there, there's information. But I go into the schools, and I do a school assembly for the entire school. I'm fluently bilingual, je suis fluemment bilingue, alors je vais aux écoles en français aussi. And then I teach the 9 treasures, the self-confidence, self-esteem, strength of character for the school assembly. Then we break into workshops for grades, grade specific, so we can tackle their issues head on in an entertaining, engaging, and empowering way.
Do you target a particular age range?
Oh, yes, it's actually from K6.
From K to 6.
So grade school.
Okay, and do parents ever contact you directly for advice? Are there any avenues for that?
Yes, usually proactive parents who want to make a difference in their schools and community also can get a hold of me as well, and they refer me to the principal, and then we take it from there. We'll just book a date.
And so the parents that enroll their kids in your martial arts classes, are they coming to you specifically with this idea of, I want to bully-proof my child, and I thought this was the best avenue?
Oh gosh, it's a whole new episode in itself, but martial arts is bully-proofing, but it's also about building the life skills such as courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, indomitable spirit. The top 2 requests that I've had over the last 30 years is when parents come in, they don't necessarily say, I want my son to kick higher or my daughter to punch harder. They say the number one for boys, usually, from my experience, is I wish my son had more confidence. And for girls, and confidence to me is the ability to believe in yourself. And for girls, usually the number one request is, can you help my daughter, gain more self-esteem? That means you are worthy of happiness and success and peace. And so that's why I talk about those when I talk about the 9 treasures. And I love going to the schools. I've been doing it for a long time. I've taught thousands of kids, and it's my passion.
Wonderful. So we're just about to head to break, but when we come back, I want to hear more about the 9 treasures and about some other insights that you have on the field of workplace harassment. So don't go away. We'll be right back with lots more.